Okay, well, we've got something new today. This is the first time we've had an AMD processor, EliteDesk, come on the channel. This is kind of an interesting, it's kind of sort of an odd beast. It's an EliteDesk 705 G3 Mini. This was the first PC that was featured on Serve the Home on their Tiny Mini Micro series. This particular unit came pretty much bare bones. The only thing has the processor, which is the AMD A10-8770E. It's a 35 watt processor, I believe 4 core. And what I find very interesting about this unit is that it's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's called a G3, and yet it's got the G2 kind of case. It doesn't have the front USB-C, so that kind of makes it look like a G1. The back looks very much like a G2. This particular, for the optional I/O, uses the same sort of expansion board as the G2. Everything looks here. This is, I believe, made by Broadcom. It's not an Intel network card. Uses the same power supply. Everything else is, pretty much normal. Again, you get the VGA, which is very common on the G2. The bottom here, you can see that does say HP EliteDesk 705 G3 Mini. When I looked up this serial number, it said it originally came with a 128 gig SSD SATA drive and a single stick of 8 gig of memory. We'll put two 4 gig in here so we'll get the dual channel faster memory. Let's see the top. Well, let's see. We're looking at the front, so it just has the normal as far as the headphones and such. 2 USB-A ports, the power supply. Again, if someone's looking at this real quickly, they're going to go, "Oh, that's I think it's a G1, G2." It definitely does not have a G3 kind of case. Let's see if we can open this up. And one thing with this that I got, it's very hard to open up. I'm going to pause here so I can. Boy, something is bent. I ended up having to put one of these jimmy things in between here. Something is bent somewhere. But okay, is the inside of the top. Again, very G2-ish. Has the information again inside here. Put this to the side. Okay, so we've got the normal caddy, G2 type caddy, G2 type pull, although this again looks, everything's just slightly similar but slightly different. I'm going to compare and check these fans out to see if they are the same model number as the G2. I'll probably do that after I take out I'll take off this heat sink and get to the CPU. I want to put on some new thermal before we do any testing with this. Let me take the caddy out. when I received this unit, this was knocking around inside. It had come out of there. At least that went in okay. Let's take that out. Looks like a normal caddy. Again, looks very similar to the G2. Let's see how the fan is connected. Yep, G2 type connector right here, as opposed to the later ones that put the connector over here. Let's take off the heat sink so we can peek at that. Oh, well, let me take this off and then I'll show you too the expansion board here. Okay. Okay. Got our CPU. I'm going to get something to, I want to wipe these both down so I can put fresh on. Before I do that, again, very similar as far as the expansion. Let me see. I'm going to take this out and compare it with a G2 one. So here's a G2 expansion board. And here's the one in our unit. Yep, look the same. Might even, let's see, make sure this this is the one. This is the from the G2. Let's see, model number. What do we got there? 581. Or no, is that 5812? Yep, those look like the same. So it uses the same as far as that is concerned. Let's put that back in. So conceivably then, oh, same little snap. Kind of funny when I was kind of checking out the unit, on the bottom was a sticker that said, if found, and call this number. Well, the number was for an IT department for a hospital. And it included like a probably like their tag number, or what their internal tracking number for it. So I had to take it off. But of course, as you take off the sticker, now you have this big thing on the back that says void, 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 void. So I had to use some Goo Gone to clean that up. Let me get some isopropyl and stuff to clean these up. All right, I took care of that one. You notice it isn't the aluminum for the heat sink. Makes sense. I mean, let's clean this guy. And it is an AMD processor, and it is the, let's see if we can see that a little better. Yes, it is the A10 8700E series. I'm curious to see what the CPU itself looks like. Let's see. Oh, a little different, as far as how you put it in. I think, let's see. I'm assuming pull this to the side. All right. Hopefully I'm not doing this. I'm just used to the, okay. There you go. So this actually has the, okay, you got the pins, and then stick that in there. Make sure you get it nice and fitted. Let's see, was there a, I noticed this has a triangle here. And there's, must be that must be the little triangle guy there. Okay, let's lock it down. All right, I assume I did that right. It's not coming out. Well, we'll know soon enough when we try to go use it. Let me back this up a little. Okay, we'll put a little thermal. It seems a little bigger than what I'm used to. Let's see, as far as the CPU. Yeah, I guess it is. It is a slightly larger one, so maybe I'll give it a little extra. Okay. All right. Okay, this is my parts only G2. And if you look at it, the part numbers are slightly different, but if you lay these on top, wow, it's straight on exact matchup. So yeah, makes sense that they would reuse parts. Let's see. Looking at this fan. Yeah, those fans look pretty good, pretty similar too. I don't know if this had a part number on here. Let's see, 571. Yeah, different part number, but they sure do look similar also. Okay, let's go put this heatsink back on. One thing I did notice is I guess this pull thing is identical. Okay, I thought for some reason this was different, but no, it's very much the same. You can see again the motherboards aren't that different either. All right, let's see. We'll tighten them just a little. Oh, it helps if I put the right bit. All right, we'll crank it down. Doesn't quite have the same crunching sound as some of the other ones, but maybe this one's been used quite a bit. We're going to put two 4 gig. This does use DDR4. So again, very similar to the G2. Okay, let's get one nice thing that they included were these little I don't know, disc grommets or whatever that you kind of need for the G2 to fit in. These were just rolling around in the inside. We'll try to get it. I think maybe what I'll do is we'll boot to the BIOS first and upgrade the BIOS if it needs it, and also confirm to make sure everything's running. And then I'll come back and we'll put in the Windows boot SSD and get in there and see how it performs. Okay. You know, I think I'm going to leave the top off. Just because it was so hard to get on before. And we'll just hook up power and everything else. All right, we got into the BIOS. Let's check the system info. See what we've got here. Okay, yeah, we got our G3 desktop mini. It's showing the right AMD Pro A10, 8 gig of memory. Um, One thing I should mention is also when I was looking up info on the serial number, I saw that it was purchased back in 2017. So let's escape. Let's go to BIOS setup. And let's, oh, don't want to do that. Let's update the system BIOS. I think it's a little easier if I use a mouse for this kind of thing. All right, go ahead and check. Update version. Oh, yeah. Definitely we'll go ahead and update. We'll let that run. Well, it's looking pretty good. It's going through its sort of second round here. It already did one reboot, and it's going to do the BIOS. Oh, yep, looks like it's coming back. Okay, normally it I don't know, the updating the BIOS is a little smoother. This time it seemed to kind of go in this in between no man's land, but I ended up just restarting and now I'm back in. It should have updated the let's see what this. Yeah, it did update the BIOS. That's good. Okay. Let's look a couple things. I'm curious in terms of virtual machine settings. Oh, SVM CPU virtualization. I guess I'm used to so many of these other things, you know, the Intel versions of things. Not sure if we need that. Okay. AMD Dash, that's kind of like their vPro, I believe, to allow for, uh, you know, working on it remotely. Let's see. We'll allow PCI. I don't know if we really need that. I'll have to look up a little bit more on that. But let's see. What else do we have? Already the system options. Okay, we'll just save these. And then we'll just put the hard drive back in. Okay, we'll put in Windows boot drive, and so that we can actually get in and see how this unit functions. Wow, that was warm. That's warm screw there. Okay. I usually don't use because I'm taking this in and out so much, I usually don't use it anyway, so we'll just, maybe we'll just leave this back one on. There we go. Okay. Okay. Now we'll try to put this cover back on. And what I did is I found that this guy here was bent a little bit. So I straightened him up. This is where, you know, the thumb screw goes into. So I'm hoping maybe that might help in terms of, well, because the thumb screw really wasn't working. Oh, okay, let's see. Let's see. Does that make it come? Oh, yeah, much better. Okay. And now that actually works, where before it was just kind of twirling around. Okay. Let's give it some power. and try the actual. Oh, there we go. And we'll let it boot up. And we are in Windows. So that's pretty cool. Let's check, see what it looks like for Task Manager. Okay, performance. Okay, CPU. All right, we have 4-core, virtualization enabled. That's good. And yeah, let's see, 4-core, 1 socket, logical 4, 2.8 gigahertz. Boy, it's really hitting it right now. But of course, we just booted. Plus, who knows? Windows may be going, oh, I need to do some updates because all other stuff is Intel things. Let's see, the memory. Yep, just like we thought, should be the 8 gig. Oh, that's an old. Sometimes, for some reason, on the I get this error on a lot on any of the G2 units. So it's that compatible, I guess you'd call it. Let's look at some of the thermals. I guess I'm so used to seeing, oh, here it is, CPU. Okay, woo, wow, that's definitely a little warmer than we've seen with our Intel. So, but that could be pretty normal. Again, not quite sure the drive temp 34. This I'll have to see how, if folks know a little bit more on the AMDs, do they run hotter than the Intel? Sure does sound like the fan's a lot noisier. Okay. All right. Let's do some benchmarks just to see how that CPU does. Although I'm going to let it finish doing, if it's needing to do any sorts of updates first, just to give it a fair shot. So once I let Windows kind of do its thing, it did say that there was a hardware update. I let it, and then it said you need to reboot. And after that, started seeing temperatures much closer. The fan's not going as crazy, and you could see there that temperatures are more closer to what you would expect, like with the Intel. So I'm going to let it settle a little bit more, and then I'm going to run the Cinebench just to get some numbers. I also thought I would sort of level the playing field by going back and giving it 16 gig of memory, which is what I had in most of my other units when I was running, benchmarks, that sort of thing on them. I was hoping to have some Cinebench numbers, but I just keep getting errors whenever I'm trying to run Cinebench on this setup, and it seems to be related to I don't know, the Ryzen drivers. Something is not right. I even went on to AMD's site. Looked like it installed latest stuff, but it just didn't work. So unfortunately, we don't have numbers to compare for Cinebench. So I thought I would go through the steps of updating the TPM from 1.2 to 2.0. The reason I know that it's at 2.0 is if I go into device security and then security processor, you'll see right here, it's 1.2. The BIOS version of that TPM is 6.41. So we'll probably have to run this a couple times as it increases the value until it gets to TPM 2.0. I'll include a link. What you want to do is download Service Pack 81900, and when it's run, it will create a folder called SW Setup, and then you want to go into the SP81900. And what I've done is I took the TPM config 64 and I copied it into this firmware directory because I want to be able to run the GUI version instead of the command line. It just makes it a little easier to do. And then what you're going to want to do is open up a command window as administrator, which of course you can do by doing a search for the command prompt, right-clicking on saying run as administrator. We want to change to this SW setup SP81900 firmware folder. And we want to run the TPM config 64. And it's going to come up. It's saying here it's going to go from 6.41 to 6.43. And that's fine because we're just going to run this again later. And it should go up another round. There's kind of a... there's a README that kind of talks about the movement from the various ones. It looks like you could conceivably go from 6.41 to the TPM20, but we'll just let the utility do the work for us instead of having to deal with the command line. All right, we'll say we've read the warnings. We'll say next, and we'll let it do its thing. Oh, looks like we're gonna have to restart, and then we'll come back and run it again. This is what you'll see as it's doing the update. To be honest, though, that could also be Microsoft Windows doing the update. Well, I guess we'll see what it finally does do the reboot. So this is what you're going to see, and obviously we're going to accept it. And then another one. And then you'll see this. So maybe that thing we were seeing about the updating probably was Windows. So now it looks more like the real stuff. Okay. We'll just say... Okay, it sounds like it turned off. Oh, turned back on again. Okay. So we should be getting back into Windows soon. Okay, we'll continue with the going to the next level here. We'll find our command processor. Run as admin. We'll go to that folder. And we'll run that okay, let's see what it shows now. Okay, oh, perfect. Now it's actually going to go to version 2. So we'll let it do its thing. And another restart. And the same thing, accept and accept. Okay, I think we're at the highest we can do, but let's just check one more time. Okay, obviously we don't want to go backwards, so we're just going to hit cancel. And now if we go into device security, and if we now check the processor, now we're at version 2. I believe that is the highest number, this 3126. So, okay, so now we've upgraded that. While it's doing some updates, I thought I would just kind of wrap this up with talking about my recommendations for or against getting a EliteDesk 705 G3 Mini. It's it's a nice unit if you could get it for pretty cheap. I mean, I would recommend at least getting the A10. That's what I have because that at least gives you 4 core versus was it the A6. Um, I know that the G4 looks a heck of a lot more like the G4 that we're used to in the EliteDesk 800. And that comes, you can get with Ryzen chips, and it's supposed to be a little faster, etc. Um, I don't know though. I mean, with this unit, it seems like they tried to reuse just a lot of stuff they had laying around, cases, motherboards. Um, they didn't go with the most expensive stuff in terms of like the network card. It runs very hot in comparison to the other units, comparable to it. And I don't know if that's just the type of CPU, if that's the I mean, again, the fans and the heatsink are like what you would get in a G2. So yeah, I mean, if you need like maybe an extra node for your Proxmox and it's going to be just doing some basic stuff, some sort of cheap thing that you need, does not have USB-C, which I really like on the units, of course, starting with the G2 onward. And, it kind of limits some of your stuff you can do with it. Even though it's called a G3, it can't use the Flex IO that you can with a normal G3. For those that like the all black case and the more kind of industrial look that you get with the G1, G2, then they might like the G3. I'll probably find some use for it. I got it again very cheap. And it was, bare bones except for, the CPU. So I was happy with that. I didn't have to go out and buy a CPU. My understanding is you can't even upgrade the CPU in this. I think that's something that they tried to do on Serve the Home. And if you watch the videos when they're talking about it, I think they thought that, maybe in retrospect, they probably should have gone with something a little more powerful. They probably overpaid a little bit for them at the time, but it was something to get started their Tiny Mini Micro series, which many of you I'm sure have watched. I've same as myself. So again, yeah, I would, for the the time and money you're putting in, I would just probably stick with an 800. Maybe even the EliteDesk or with the 600s. But again, for the money, you're not spending that much more, and you might as well get the EliteDesk.